Hi, my name is Michael Tafaro, and I am a crime victim that has been on a quest for justice since 2002. This short presentation is a preview of my book entitled Bergen County Corruption Disruption. It spotlights how corrupt lawyer Anthony Suarez enlists his racketeer friends to commit serious crimes that enable him to win civil court cases. His various connections are what make him very dangerous. Beginning in 2002, I intervened in a civil case in which Anthony Suarez was the opposing attorney. He responded by having his underlings barrage me with 5 false charges. This came at a time when I needed capital for legal fees to fight Mr. Suarez. I was outraged about these criminal charges and that he had lied during the first hearing months earlier. In response, I circulated a 7-page open letter to the residents of Ridgefield, criticizing him. At that time, I was only able to afford to send out several hundred copies. That letter was distributed prior to Election Day when he first became mayor in January 2004. On the Borough of Ridgefield website, it states that the mayor is automatically a planning board member, a position that benefits Mr. Suarez's business because he is both a real estate and land use attorney. Additionally, the webpage states that as CEO, he is responsible for the enforcement of all New Jersey laws. Since being elected mayor in January 2004, Anthony Suarez has brought 10 false charges against me. These false charges were filed in retaliation for trying to expose him or for filing a civil suit against him or his interests. The first thing Anthony Suarez did to assist his clients in robbing my money and freedom was to recruit Ridgefield Court Administrator Stephanie Sear. Built on a foundation of forgeries and lies, Ms. Sear filed 4 fraudulent criminal complaints against me, charging me with 5 serious felonies. 4 of the 5 charges were dismissed outright at the probable cause hearing. Notably, she forged and backdated the remaining charge. Stephanie Sear swore under oath that this complaint was signed on July 22, 2002. However, the form was created on January 1, 2003, 5 months later. Ms. Sear went as far as to conceal her forged criminal complaint by writing 03 3 times on the letter that I submitted to her. Subsequently, I forced the matter to trial and was wrongfully convicted on the last charge due to perjured testimony. I responded by filing both criminal charges and a civil suit against Suarez's people's witness, Scott Bartone, for perjury, whom I believe was influenced to lie by Mayor Anthony Suarez. Attorney Shelley D. Albert, Mayor Suarez's law partner, was the opposing attorney and was also not truthful during that trial. I believe that she appeared instead of Mr. Suarez in order to be used as a buffer, similar to how Vinnie Tabacino had received a $10,000 bribe just to make it appear that Mr. Suarez had not been involved. Although I have solid evidence that I was a victim of a violent crime, I was wrongfully convicted by corrupt Judge Roy F. McGady and fined hundreds of dollars. It is truly remarkable that I was assaulted by one of Anthony Suarez's people, with Ridgefield police officers present, and they did nothing about it. In addition to the fine, a restraining order was placed on me. This restraining order has been a recurrent trap since 2004 and has been revised 3 times since, each time becoming more restrictive with regard to what I can write or speak about. It is now to the point that my First Amendment rights have been stolen from me. I have had to be extremely careful not to mention certain things in my advertisement or this preview because they were both mailed and posted. The restraining order forces me to be vague in my writing and bars me from expressing myself freely. This prevents me from clearly detailing my story. Additionally, I am unable to display the full documents or I will surely be sent back to prison. I have already been tried 6 times based solely on violating the restraining order. 3 jury trials contributed to allegedly publishing an internet ad, and the other 3 trials were due to my writings and nothing more. My weapon is a pen, and I was imprisoned 3 times because I dared to use it in my defense. In writing my book, I am able to navigate my way through these illegal restrictions. All vivid details, along with the entire unredacted documents, will be included in the content of my book. My speech was also silenced in that I am barred from attending Richfield Town Hall meetings. Mr. Suarez had these constraints arranged by his co-conspirators in order to prevent me from publicly voicing the crimes that they committed against me. Throughout the chapters in my book, I am able to circumvent these restrictions. Anthony Suarez and his ilk will not stop me from writing a book. The book is about us all. If those entrusted with power are able to suppress my First Amendment right to free speech, they can and will do it to you too. Doing so gives the racketeers license to criminalize the very process of making complaints, shielding them from all wrongdoing. It's a racket, and an unconstitutional one at that, which threatens our very democracy. Please join me in my mission to fight for the founding principles that our Constitution provides us. In April 2004, Stephanie Sear lured me to the Ridgefield Police Department under the auspices of picking up a transcript. To my surprise, I was arrested for contempt of the restraining order. This would be the first of 3 arrests claiming violation of my restraining order. In February 2005, I forced the issue to trial. Corrupt Judge Donald R. Venezia rigged my trial by not allowing the exculpatory evidence I provided to be heard by the jury, evidence which in fact would have easily proved my innocence. Additionally, the judge caused my wrongful conviction by coercing the jurors to convict me, specifically by asking me over 30 questions in order to assist incompetent and corrupt prosecutor Heather N. Suffin to set me up. Finally, in 2008, the New Jersey Supreme Court ruled that Judge Venezia had fixed my trial in a unanimous decision to overturn my conviction. However, by this time the damage had already been done. Just 1 month after this wrongful conviction, I was sued civilly based on it, even though the suit was clearly frivolous. Once again, I had to allocate resources to spend on legal fees to defend myself, further compromising my ability to fight Anthony Suarez. His modus operandi is to continually use his criminal racketeering friends to attack and burden his adversaries with meritless prosecutions to disable and bankrupt them. With no money for attorney fees, one typically loses their case. Notwithstanding, Captain Rich Besser and Detective Kevin Nebbia of the Ridgefield Police Department are both guilty of official misconduct and hindering prosecution, which are very serious felonies. On March 12, 2004, I filed a complaint and pressed charges for filing multiple false charges against me with Rich Besser. These include the aforementioned 5 charges. I have solid evidence that each of these charges were entirely false. Captain Besser signed and dated my complaint and handed me a copy. He was in serious violation of law by not forwarding my complaint to a judge so I could have my probable cause hearing to present my evidence. Not surprisingly, when I filed charges against Rich Besser for official misconduct and hindering prosecution on February 26, 2009, Detective Kevin Nebbia would commit the same felony crimes in order to protect Captain Besser. A couple years prior to this incident, on August 16, 2007, Kevin Nebbia had arrested me for trying to obtain the building permit records of my brother's house. My brother Scott and I suspected criminal activity on the planning board. This was my second arrest based on the restraining order. At the time, Anthony Suarez was a member of the planning board, and Kevin Nebbia's father, Harold Nebbia, was the chairman of the board. Additionally, Mayor Suarez was also the opposing defense attorney in a civil case involving the property, which Scott had filed. Scott wanted me to get the records because he lives out of state. Shamefully, I was subsequently arrested for making a false statement on a mere application. I believe this was done to prevent me from exposing them. The false arrest, in which I was acquitted of after trial, would cause me to sue Mayor Suarez and the borough of Ridgefield. In my complaint that was filed on July 31, 2009, I gave a detailed 10-page account of the harassment and abuse that Anthony Suarez and his minions caused me to suffer. If I were to post the entire complaint here, I would be sent back to prison because Anthony Suarez, the judge, and the rest of the racketeers have restrained me from writing about it, and in doing so, exposing them. This is very telling, along with the fact that I never received the records nor the refund of my money that Kevin Nebbia stole from me. I believe that Detective Nebbia protected his father, Harold Nebbia, Anthony Suarez, and others by filing the charges, arresting me, and then testifying against me at trial. My legal fees for the defense of this false charge drained my resources once again while I still had civil cases pending. I agree with Ken Ziza, John L. Molinelli's former friend, who was quoted in the media as saying that, quote, "Molinelli is the most corrupt prosecutor ever." Shamefully, Prosecutor John Molinelli decided to re-prosecute me despite my wrongful contempt conviction being overturned by the New Jersey Supreme Court on July 1st, 2008. Mr. Molinelli knew I was innocent of the contempt charge based on my hard evidence that Judge Donald Venezia suppressed. Most notably, Prosecutor Molinelli continued to prosecute me for a crime that I had already served a sentence for while my appeals were pending. That amounts to double jeopardy, and it's outrageous and unconstitutional. For the next 3 years, they drained more of my resources by forcing me to make over 30 subsequent appearances in court before I received a trial date in mid-2011. John Molinelli utilized his henchman, Senior Prosecutor Mark A. Thonis, to prosecute me at this jury trial. During the same period, he went as far as defending Anthony Suarez's interest when I sued him civilly for the false arrest. Mark Thonis participated in a civil deposition for a case entitled Michael Tafaro versus Anthony Suarez and the Borough of Ridgefield, which was held at the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office. One must ask, since when is it legal or even ethical for a prosecutor to defend a political figure, his former colleague, in a civil case, in his own office and on the taxpayer dime? The answer is clearly never. The motive is crystal clear that Prosecutor Thonis, using taxpayer revenue, was assisting Anthony Suarez. He would go on to represent Anthony Suarez's interests in 2 additional civil cases, once again courtesy of the taxpayers. On September 6, 2012, instead of doing his job and prosecuting criminals such as himself, Prosecutor Thonis appeared and argued at a hearing as a civil defense attorney. He subsequently filed an amicus brief on October 11, 2012 for this case. Next, Prosecutor Thonis went on to defend on a significant case in which Anthony Suarez was the opposing attorney against me. This particular case involved the withholding of my nephew's college funds, totaling over $125,000. Heated arguments were heard during the proceeding, and my attorney forcefully argued that the prosecutor's office had no right to interfere with my civil cases. Although the judge decided that I hadn't committed a probation violation, he ruled that I should have had an attorney mail my pro se motion instead of mailing the motion myself. Right then and there, the judge had me hauled off to jail for 10 days just for serving a civil motion, as the civil court required me to do. Yet again, Anthony Suarez had the taxpayers pay for his representation, and once again, I was forced to hire an attorney. This was my 3rd arrest for what was clearly an unconstitutional restraining order. Anthony Suarez enlists the prosecutor's office to force the taxpayers to pay his legal fees on civil cases while attacking his adversaries. I have reviewed 5 of my cases here. Mr. Suarez's corruption knows no bounds. He even went as far as doing the same thing to the former mayor of Ridgefield, Stuart Veal. Anthony Suarez contacted John Molinelli to criminally charge Mr. Veal, who was a lifelong respected public servant. This was done to Mr. Veal because he was appointed to a political job, a position that Anthony Suarez wanted to fill with one of his own. At the time, he was in his 80s, just prior to his passing. In the case in which Anthony Suarez personally cost the residents of Ridgefield the most, Michael Tafaro versus Anthony Suarez and the Borough of Ridgefield, the conclusion was typical. Newly appointed Judge Lisa Perez Frischer was moved up from the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office and was assigned to rule on my case. She found a loophole for Anthony Suarez to slither through. These racketeers don't even attempt to hide their criminal activity. The days where my capital can be depleted are over. Suarez, Molinelli, and their colleagues have made many enemies who have united to legally bring each of them the justice they deserve, united to seek any and all legal remedy in the pursuit of justice. To paraphrase, bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than that good men should look on and do nothing.